What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, want to talk about Stellar Blade and its sales so far. Now, we're still kind of early into this thing, and we don't have, well, we have one definitive number in terms of like actual units sold, but the rest of it is kind of just chart work. And, we've done this for Final Fantasy, we've done this for other games. I will admit, it is very difficult to fully, to get the full picture, right? When you're looking at charts and you're looking at where these games rank, I mean, they don't give you the actual sales. I hope that this game is doing well. If for no other reason, then I really like it. I think this is a great game, a new IP. We need more, honestly, for the love of God, we need more of these type of games, even if it's just like a new IP type thing. And I do want more of them. And so, I mean, sales, look, like if the game came out and it completely bombed, well, that would obviously hurt the idea of getting a sequel. I don't think it did. We've talked actually in the past really couple weeks ever since the game came out. It feels like this game has done well, but I mean, like, is that some sort of like sixth sense I have? Like, is there anything to actually back that up? As of now, kind of no. There's not too much to back it up. But what we do have, again, is two different things to, I guess, talk about. Number one is the Japan sales, and I do believe this is just physical copies, and again, it's just Japan, right? And they're really the most like accurate, and they're also, I would say, the fastest of just getting this information out. I think they track it weekly, although this one is the first 2 weeks because there was a holiday last week in Japan. So the game is number one on the charts in Japan physically, and it sold 67,131 copies. Now, don't look at that and say, oh, that's abysmal, right? Like, that's terrible. People don't buy physical games anymore. It's a tragedy. It sucks, but it is what it is. So I actually think that's a pretty solid number. Even again in the first 2 weeks, it can continue to go higher and higher. I mean, I imagine it probably tops out around like 120, maybe 140. But you could be saying, all right, well, 67,000, like, you're starting to build towards maybe a million or two, but you got a long way to go. Fair point. Then we go to the PlayStation Store sales charts, and this is both North America and this is also Europe. Now, this is also, actually, this is the opposite. This is just digital, right? So, like, none of these charts give the full thing. Japan, that one doesn't track digital sales. I'm sure it did even more there digitally. And then these sales charts don't count physical, which you imagine maybe it did actually quite well. I did go on Amazon just for fun, and Stellar Blade, I believe, is number one still in the U.S. at least. So, I mean, that's pretty good. And you imagine it's doing at least somewhat well physically because of that. But you have the North American sales charts, and Stellar Blade is number two. And then you have the European sales charts, and Stellar Blade is number four. And the headlines for like this news story that you might have seen online, Sea of Thieves actually kind of dominating, right? Number one in Europe and number three in North America. Now, another thing to keep in mind, you could say, oh man, Stellar Blade number two and number four, like, that's good. And I would look at that as being very good, right? You could say, oh man, I wanted number one. I wanted it to be number one. One thing you have to think about, right, is that this is the entirety of April, and this game came out with 5 days left in April. So to spin it, and honestly, it's not to spin it like in a clickbaity way. It's not to spin it to even like simp over the game. To spin it, I honestly just believe accurately, right? The game had 5 days. It didn't even have a full week to chart. And it did number two in North America and number four in Europe. I think that's really good. Now, I mean, to counter it, you could say, well, look, it's going to do most of its sales in the first couple weeks. And that is true, right? Like the first 2-3 weeks, I imagine for a game like this are going to be pretty important. So what I think is going to actually be kind of fun is to look at May, when May's which will be, kind of in early June. Because May, honestly, there's not a lot. Like May's charts, to give a quick prediction, May's chart will be a lot like April, just, I think, reshuffled. Maybe Helldivers 2 still leads the way in North America, but, like the Sea of Thieves is of the world, and the Dragon's Dogma 2 and all these, like, they're still going to be there, right? They're really, they might change order, but they're all still going to be on that list because really the only game of massive impact, and you can even argue how big of an impact, I would say a lot, but not everybody would, Hellblade 2, and that's also at the end of the month. That's on May 21st. So if Stellar Blade is still, I would say, top 2 to top 5 in May, then you can, I think, safely say that it had a pretty darn good launch, and then it kind of stayed consistent throughout May. And again, like, to be fair and to, not try to like be any clickbaity or, to try to spin narratives, we don't know for sure. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't prove 1,000% that the game is doing outrageously well. I really want them just to come out and say, like, hey, we sold And I mean, like, does it look bad if you come out and say, hey, we sold 500,000 units? Because, you know, for people that say, oh, this is a big AAA game or this is a big PlayStation game or whatever, 500,000 might not be good, right? But what if this game has sold 2 million or 1 million or, you know, whatever? I'd like to just see that, right? And I feel like we do talk about sales an okay amount on this channel. I feel like the last little while, it has been really hard to find sales. Like, you know, we've gotten some. Tekken did it way back, like the first week that was out. I think Dragon's Dogma maybe did. Persona, I think, did. Infinite Wealth did when they first came out. So, I mean, some do, but some don't. Like, we're still waiting on Final Fantasy. And even some of, like, the fall games, we never really got a clear indicator on how well they sold. So some games are just weirdly secretive, and I almost feel like it's becoming more and more secretive as time goes on. So I really don't know what's going on there, but the point is, right, I hope that Stellar Blade isn't one of those where, like, we just never know, or we have to wait for, like, a fiscal report maybe in, like, a few months from now to tell how well this game did. I feel like it did well. Again, though, that's just, like, that's my intuition, which could totally be wrong, you know what I mean? But I feel, from what we had already kind of heard and sensed, like, in the last 2 weeks, I think it did pretty well. And then, you know, again, they're not saying Stellar Blade sold 800,000 in the U.S. and Stellar Blade sold 450,000 in Europe. Like, there's no numbers attached. But to be number 2 and number 4, and to only have 5 days to do it, and you're competing with Helldivers, which just continue, like, Helldivers never stops, you know what I mean? So I feel like it's doing pretty good, but I would like to see maybe an official number from them one day, and hopefully we get it, like, in the next few weeks. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turn on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.